Good morning or afternoon, everybody, and welcome to session 2 of the series, How an Idea Becomes a Class. These sessions will span all of TLC. So after today, we're in for one more session tomorrow at the same time. And they explore the concept of how an idea becomes a class from two angles that are optimized to support two different institutions, structures, UAGC and University of Arizona, specifically Arizona Online. Yesterday, we heard from Netta Fletcher, Morgan Johnson, and Jen Zauer about the data analysis and planning that ensures that as programs are developed, that the student populations they intend to serve can see themselves in those programs, that they feel that they belong. And today, Caleb Simmons and Jen Zauer are going to zoom into program development a little more closely to address how courses are developed with the same idea of belonging in mind. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones are muted for this session, but we encourage you to post questions in the chat. Also, we've enabled live transcription, so if you would like to use it, please click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now, I'm pleased to turn the floor over to Jen and Caleb to introduce yourselves and take us through session 2 of How an Idea Becomes a Class.
Thanks so much, Teresa. Hi, everybody. We're really excited to be here today for this second session about crafting dynamic courses for program level success. And Caleb, did you want to kick us off by sharing this statement with us?
Yeah. We respectfully acknowledge the University of Arizona is on the lands and territories of indigenous peoples. Today, Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, with Tucson being home to the O'odham and the Yaqui. Committed to diversity and inclusion, the university strives to build sustainable relationships with sovereign Native nations and indigenous communities through education offerings, partnerships, and community service. And just a little note on that, even though we are virtual, digital, distance learning, we are all, part of this institution, which has its roots here, but also, I think it's always good to reflect on our learners, our staff, our faculty are also all situated in different spaces and have similar responsibilities to Native nations.
Thanks so much, Caleb. And before we really dig in and share a little bit more about ourselves and our topic for today, we wanted to start the same way that we started our first session yesterday by acknowledging that we put these sessions together through our dialogue and really focusing on that idea of appreciative inquiry, and that we are on a journey together and learning about and with and from each other as it relates to processes for program development, course development, and how to make sure that those courses are meeting the needs of our students through facilitation. And this approach has given us the opportunity to dialogue and connect with each other about what's working well and how do we build upon what's working well so that we can continue to collaborate and use these experiences to grow as we move forward together. So yesterday's session, if you had the chance to attend, or even if you didn't, focused on big picture program development. How do we even come to the decisions about programs that need to be developed, and what data do we use, and how do we drive those decisions? What voices are brought into that dialogue and conversation? And Morgan highlighted yesterday with one of the tools that we had used at UAGC that the data didn't necessarily speak to the need for the program, but once we dug into the voices of the students that that program represented, the AA and military studies, that the voices really spoke to the need. And so just we spent time yesterday looking into all of those factors that go into the larger picture decision making, and then funneled down a little bit into at UAGC, really, how do we then decide when we start to put those courses on the schedule? And we'll pick up there today, where Caleb's going to share first about UA Online's approach to how, when we have ideas for courses, how they make that way towards the path of course development. And then I'll dig in a little bit after Caleb and share more about, okay, how do we make it happen once we know that a course is going to be on the schedule, and what are the processes we use, and how do we bring different voices in? So and then tomorrow, my apologies, we will connect in session 3 with some of our colleagues and continue from there with this course. How do we make sure that as we're designing that we have the minds of our students and the faculty who are facilitating, and the students who are taking those courses, to ensure that we're creating those transformative learning experiences. So in case you're wondering who Caleb and I are and why we're here sharing this with you, we'll take just a minute to introduce ourselves. Caleb, go ahead.
Thanks, Jen. And wish we were in a context where we could all share each other's names and get to know one another. But I recognize a lot of the names on the Zoom, so thank you all for joining us. I think we will have a good time learning about a couple of different approaches to how a course comes into being. I'm Caleb Simmons. I'm the executive director of Arizona Online. I'm also the faculty director of our interdisciplinary studies program and a faculty member, professor in our Department of Religious Studies and Classics.
Thanks, Caleb. And I'm Jen Zauer, the Director of Learning Solutions at University of Arizona Global Campus, and oversee our course and curriculum development throughout the institution. So we'll start today by Caleb spending a little bit of time talking about AZ Online's ground up design approach, and then we'll dig into our centralized approach at UAGC, look at the value proposition of both, and then give a little teaser into the design and teaching connection to set you up for tomorrow. So with that, Caleb, take it away.
Yeah, so I one of the things I hope you found exciting about yesterday is some of the convergences between the two processes, but also how we're distinct. I think what we'll see together today is that our process for the original idea of a course and how it comes into being also flows in perhaps different directions, and the benefits and some of the drawbacks of each of these, and how as we continue with the University of Arizona to align and optimize between UAGC and Arizona Online, how we're going to try to figure out what's the best approach for ensuring that our courses, our curriculum are as robust and as meaningful for the student experience as possible. So you see the slide, it's a pretty simple one about the direction or the flow of how a course comes into being. And one caveat that I want to say here is that for Arizona Online, there is no different process for how a course comes into being than in main campus. So this follows the same process of starting at the departmental or ground level, then moving on to one of our colleges, going through a curricular review there, and then eventually moving up to the university for overall approval. So really starting as a groundswell movement. And at each of these different levels and involvement, there's an involvement of shared governance. There's also an involvement of administration to make sure that it's meeting the needs of the rigorous degree programs, but then also meeting the goals of colleges and the university as a whole. You can go to the next slide. So if we look at the department level, I called it the launching point because this is really where we have a lot of little seedlings of course possibilities. I can remember from my first day as a faculty member at the University of Arizona as an assistant professor over a decade ago. In the interview process, the first question I was asked was, "What courses would you create if you were here?" And so that was very much the assumption, is that when a new faculty member comes in, they're coming in with their expertise and that they'll develop that expertise into individual courses. So the faculty members in the different programs and the different departments are responsible for generating ideas for courses. And as the faculty thinks through this, of course, you're always in faculty meetings thinking about the overall direction of the department, but how you could optimize your expertise into those different directions. And so the things that you have to consider as a faculty member are not just the things you want to teach, but you have to consider, do I want to teach it at a introductory level, at a 100 level, all the way up through, do I want to teach this as a graduate course or as a senior level 400 course for undergrad, what the topic is going to be, how broad it will have to be, how it fits into the degree requirements, how it fits into university requirements for gen ed. So all of these things have to swirl around in a faculty member's mind. And then they start to develop a course. Hopefully the faculty member is doing this in dialogue with colleagues within the department and the department head, but not always. Sometimes people just kind of take the initiative and start to do it on their own. Eventually, they will be responsible for developing a syllabus and a course proposal form that they'll submit to their department head and to the curriculum committee. And there's a little bit of flow back and forth between this because the curriculum committee is the shared governance committee at the department level. They'll consider all those same factors that the faculty member should be considering, how it fits into the overall rigor and fit of the program, and if there needs to be any degree requirement changes as a result. So, for instance, going back to my example, whenever I was hired into a new subject matter area. I was the only South Asianist, so I built out 6 courses for a South Asia emphasis, which meant that we had to update our degree requirements to accommodate that course and that emphasis. And the curriculum committee was responsible for determining that fit. Once the committee decides that this is something that they want to move forward, there'll be a vote. Then that vote will actually go back to the faculty, and now we're using faculty as the plural, the entire faculty for the department for approval with the degree requirements as well. And if it passes there, then it will fall to the department head to move this forward to the college level. But then also, if it's approved, the department head is responsible for scheduling the course in consultation with the faculty member, which is always a negotiation of how often any individual course will be made. Of course, if it passes through, but the department head's not super supportive, they can always just never schedule it. And so the course will be officially on the books, but never offered. So there's always a balancing act between the administrative side and the faculty side on that information in the course coming out. All right, so we can move on to the college level. So at the college level, you move into the level of balancing impacts. The way that the budgets work or have worked traditionally at the University of Arizona, we're developing a new system now. The college would receive their revenue based on certain drivers of performance or activity. So the college level has to weigh the recommendations of the department coming up, the other courses available within the college, and then the overall goals and strategic plan of the college. So once it moves up to the college level, the first place it goes is to the curriculum committee. So it's already gone through a departmental curriculum committee. Now it moves to a college-wide curriculum committee, which is populated by faculty representatives from each of the departments. This shared governance committee, again, looks at the rigor of the course and vets it to make sure that it fulfills all of the needs of the college for the overall degrees. They're also looking for anything that might be a little bit of conflict with other offerings. All the department heads will have an opportunity to weigh in. They will look a lot more into the overlap aspect. So if, again, I'm teaching in religious studies, if I start talking about classical India too much, perhaps one of my colleagues in classics would have an exception to the framing of my course. So sometimes you have to revise and work to make the course in alignment with all the interdepartmental offerings. Finally, it goes to the dean's office, who will consider, what are the revenue impacts of offering this course, how it fits into the overall budgeting. So through this, again, shared governance process, the course is further refined and potentially, given resources at the dean's level or at the college level to be able to move forward. And that moves us to the last portion of this shared governance journey, and that's at the university level. So you have to go through, again, more layers of review, going to curricular affairs, and they manage, once it moves past the college, the overall introduction of a course into the course catalog for the university, and all of the approvals that are necessary through our system. When a new course comes in, all associate deans of academics from colleges are notified. They can look for overlap. They can look for things that they find perhaps not as rigorous as they may want. And then the curricular affairs will shuffle that feedback back and forth, working toward getting the course accepted at this point, but making sure everyone's voice is heard. At this point, the college deans also review for overlap, making sure that people are sticking to their disciplinary expertise and not moving over someone else's course without having consulted and being truly interdisciplinary, as is the goal for a lot of our colleges. And then finally, there are requirements for certain courses. If the Gen Ed, it has to fall into our overall Gen Ed program. The Gen Ed committee will go through and make sure that it's in alignment. And this will happen also at the registrar and everything, just to make sure that the boxes that need to be checked for the different requirements are actually checked for the final vetting. Once it's made it through all of these layers, everyone's signed off that there's is of value to the overall catalog, that there's no overlap. At this point, it is entered into the course catalog and can begin enrolling students. So it's a long journey from the initial idea of the faculty with their expertise to get the course actually on the books and being able to be taught. On main campus, it takes about a year to get to that point. With Arizona Online, you have the year for curriculum approval, and then usually a developmental semester or year after that to actually produce the content for an online environment. So anytime the ideas comes up, there's, for Arizona Online, about 18 months from inception to enrollment in the best case scenario. Most of the time, it takes a lot longer than that. So it can be a slow process, but as you can see, it's one that really focuses on shared governance, feedback, and ensuring that there's alignment for the budget, alignment for the curriculum, and then of course the rigor that we would demand.
Thanks, Caleb. Oh yeah, I'm jumping into mine, but I actually think there's one point that might be helpful to clarify before I dig in. Can you share a little bit about when you talk about a course and a faculty member generating, and then who facilitates or teaches that particular course? Because I know there's some nuances between how that is done at Arizona Online as compared to UAGC, which will probably help as I segue into my section too.
That's another great question. Because this is really viewed as intellectual property of an individual faculty member, typically the faculty member who proposed it is kind of the owner of the class. And this is not always the case, because some courses, the multiple faculty come together to create it as a core portion of the degree program. But I'll go back to myself as an example. When I created the 6 courses that I created for my emphasis, it was incumbent on me to rotate those classes through to be able to offer it. I went on sabbatical and I gave permission for another faculty member to teach my courses. And then I came back and they offered it once when I was back. So that led to a departmental discussion over who had it been done properly. And it was determined that it had not. And I will admit that I was the one pushing that conversation forward. And the course came back to me after that. So it is a little bit territorial. It's very much viewed as you might view your research, that it's proprietary in many ways, especially online when you develop all the assets. Even though I use myself as an example, I don't necessarily know that that's the best approach. We have different expertise that can be utilized in different ways. But that very much is like an ownership that comes with this sort of grassroots development of an idea. And thanks for getting me to clarify that, Jen.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it's just helpful context as I shift into talking about our centralized approach at UAGC and really helping to differentiate between the processes that you guys are currently using as compared to the processes that we are. And going back to that beginning idea of, really that appreciative inquiry and learning and growing and understanding from each other about the different approaches, and that they both bring value, and considering, how they both work. So at UAGC, we don't necessarily use an approach in the way that Caleb just described for Arizona Online with that grounds up approach, but use a centralized approach. And this is because of the way in which we offer our courses, in that once a course is developed, all sections of that course are the same course. So if you were able to join us yesterday, we talked about, again, how we got to the point of deciding that a course needed to be put onto the revision schedule. And so that's where we're going to pick up today with, we know that we have a course, and unlike as Caleb shared as the process, we do have a governance process, but as his moved through at multiple different levels, and it was really that individual faculty member helping to push and drive that through and working to make sure that that revision and that course got developed and ready. We have a centralized approach and model that we use to help get from start to finish. So what does this process look like for us? Well, once the decision is made to add a course to the schedule, that we have all the approvals and a course is ready to go, we work with a group of stakeholders to determine where we should place that course on the schedule, which involves consulting with assistant deans, having them consult with their faculty, and additionally looking at the teams on the back end that are helping to support that revision and make sure that we're balancing the schedule in a way that aligns with everybody's workloads. Then we develop and organize our development team, which includes a wide range of people, including a faculty subject matter expert, an ID, our media teams, assessment, library, writing center, quality assurance, and accessibility. We bring all of those teams together to work throughout the process to have the course developed and built. And really, the faculty and the ID partner together throughout that relationship and throughout that timeline for that course revision to be able to, with support from other teams, to bring that course to life and add it to our master course library. And that is essentially where all of our courses are copied from, or so every section of a course that we have is identical, and anybody who is teaching that course will teach that version that was created throughout this centralized design approach. So you might wonder a little bit more about that particular model. Well, the structure in the centralized design approach is to have a team that is supporting a course revision with specialists from a variety of different disciplines, and that they use their knowledge in those areas and work together and create that course shell or that master model of that shell that other faculty are using when they're teaching the same course. There's development team support throughout so that there's a broad understanding of the structure of the course at a university level, so that students and faculty have a systematic course that they can use as they're in each of their courses, and that there's all the resources available to ensure that that course is meeting the needs of the students and the faculty. And one of the reasons this centralized approach has worked so well for us is that we're able to scale and ensure design consistency at the same time. So if you're not familiar with our course structure at UAGC, the majority of our courses are 5 and 6 weeks in length. So having a quick course from start to finish, having that design consistency is really valuable for students so that they know what to expect, and also for faculty to assist them as they're facilitating. So what are some of the keys to success with a centralized approach? Well, we really strive to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities throughout the process so that we know who's doing what and what are their responsibilities, and we can work together to ensure that we're getting from start to finish. That also includes having clearly defined processes and workflows. How do we get from point A to point B, and from point B to point C, and from point C to point D? And having communication and collaboration throughout the process to make sure that everybody is comfortable saying, hey, wait a second, like, can we look at this, or can we explore this, or can we partner together on this throughout the process? And you'll see in just a minute when I share kind of a snapshot of all the different teams that are involved. This is where we really, I think, have something unique in terms of bringing in multiple voices, and to make sure that we're considering so many different elements as we are working to create that master shell version of a course. And finally, a key to our success is that a culture of continuous improvement, or, you can tie back to appreciative inquiry that we've talked about, but that we're constantly seeking feedback and looking for ways to continue to evolve and improve the processes, with the ultimate goal of student success being at the heart of those decisions. So, who are the stakeholders that are involved? Well, when we go from having our kickoff for our course through a course being ready for students, it's approximately 4 to 6 months. We have a phase that we call pre-development, where we do some initial work. A typical revision is 14 weeks, and then there's some time on the back end to take care of that copy process that we're talking about for having a master shell model. But as you can see, these are all of the different stakeholders, right, that lend a role when it comes to the revision and the development and creation of each course. So from faculty to assessment to learning technology to quality assurance to learning resources, all of these stakeholders are involved throughout the process, and involved at different times depending on where a course is in the phase. But the value in this is bringing in those idea of voices, right, that we've talked about so much throughout this conference. How do we incorporate multiple voices? How do we make sure that we are looking at things from different lenses, or that we have the resources and support that's needed in these courses for students to be successful? And we're able to pull together this group of stakeholders because of our centralized approach and those processes that we've talked about, of how we make our courses go from point A to point B to point C. So for example, you can see when we have our different steps stepped out, we have the stakeholders identified that are included and are a part of each of those different steps. You can see the faculty, right, is always at the heart, right, starting at the beginning and is a part of each step. But then you can see other stakeholders come and go throughout different phases depending on what's happening and what's going on. And the teams that are assigned to help to support these courses will, jump in at other times that aren't quote unquote that assigned step that they are a part of, but depending on need, but really making sure that the right voices and the right people are at the different steps within the development to help again get from the beginning to the end and make sure that we have those courses in the best way they can possibly be in time for students to take them. So as you can see from what Caleb shared and what I shared, there's a lot of differences in the ways that we get to bringing a course online. And, we've spent some time over the last year, we started to engage in a pilot with each other to better learn about processes. And I see that Melody's here, and she leads the UCAT team. And if you're not familiar, that's the team at University of Arizona where their instructional designers live and where they help to build and create these courses. And we've engaged in a pilot over the last couple of months, really digging in and starting to understand more about each other's processes and having dialogue, right? And asking questions and saying, well, tell me more about that. Well, tell me more about this. Oh, have you tried this? Have you tried that? And just really taking time to get to know each other and understand the benefits and the challenges that we both encounter with different approaches that we use and how we can work through those pieces together and coming back together for opportunities of, let's stop and let's pause and let's reflect and talk about the different voices within our institutions and how we can continually improve processes and approaches. And Caleb, I don't know if you want to add or elaborate anything here as it relates to, the the learning from each other and how we are continuing to talk and reflect and and borrow and change things from each other's experiences.
Yeah, I think this is the real key to this presentation and the series of presentations because as we continue to learn about one another and the direction and flow of courses, like is one thing that was touched on a little bit by Jen and I didn't dive into, and that is this is the curricular process, same as for Maine, but then once it's in online, then there's a handoff to some of the similar things that were discussed here to Melody's program, where the individual faculty works with the design team and instructional designers, and we work on all the assets. So that portion is sort of additive to the process afterwards, but still with the same faculty ownership that comes along with this being their intellectual content. So it makes that relationship with an ID different and different obstacles that come through. And I think that this is, as we continue to unify, going to be the things that when we start to reflect on like what needs to change on both sides, because we have amazing faculty on both sides and we want that expertise to come shining through. But we also need a consistent experience for our students and be able to support them through this process. And we both do this in different ways, and hopefully we'll get to a point where what's best of each is adopted by the other, and what we're not doing so well we can start to carve away. So I think there's a lot of hope and optimism in bringing these teams together to have these discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, we'll pick up tomorrow with our colleagues and really start to say, okay, so how are we being mindful as we're designing with what the teaching piece is going to be? Because you can't design without considering teaching, and you can't teach without understanding the design. But we want to take some time in case there's any questions today, or if anybody else, I know there's been a whole collective team that's worked to bring this series together, who has been a part of our dialogue as we've been planning behind the scenes, who wants to jump in and share anything else, so please feel free to do so as well. As we think about, connections between yesterday's conversation, today's, and then knowing where we're headed tomorrow. So with that, I think we'll open it up for questions.
And one thing I would be very interested in hearing is from people from both sides or even other institutions. how this process works, and what one might see is some of the benefits of having an instructor driving the course from ground up, sort of advocating for it, or having a more sort of collective systematized approach to the curriculum. Because I think that's something that we're struggling with, is what that balance looks like moving forward.
Thank you, Jen and Caleb. I just want to invite anybody who's attending, feel free to unmute to answer Caleb's question if you have something you want to share, or you can put it in the chat. Also, if you have questions of your own. I will say a question that I have to kick off. I think Caleb is connected to what you asked about finding balance between the individual instructor driven versus centralized approach. I kind of want to go back to what you and Jen were talking about at the very beginning of this presentation, which I think is like the main connector to what we discussed yesterday, and that is the vetting of a course, even before it gets to development. So Caleb, you walked us through the various shared governance conversations and processes that happen before a course is on the docket to be developed. And then Jen, you mentioned briefly a group of stakeholders who address that vetting in a little bit of a different way. I wonder if you each could go into a little bit more detail, whether it be via shared governance or in the group of stakeholders, Jen, that you mentioned, go into a little bit more detail about the types of analysis and discourse that's happening in that vetting process. Maybe could you give us an example of something that arises from that conversation that needs fixing before a course can go be developed? And maybe an example of something that is like, yes, this is really great that comes from that conversation.
Yeah, so I'll jump in and give another personal example. I worked very closely with a colleague to develop a co-taught interdisciplinary course, and it was called World Mythology. I teach a course called Hindu Mythology. He teaches a course called Classical Mythology. So we thought, let's bring those together and have a broader view. Long story short, it did not make it past the departmental review. So we spent time on this, developed it, found textbooks, developed a syllabus, assessments, connected them back to our learning outcomes. And the feedback was pretty wide ranging, from budgetary concerns of what does it look like to split workload between two faculty members? Would you like, how does that work into one's contract? Then the other was that, this was world mythology and we didn't have world expertise. So on the sections that we would teach about, like mythology from East Asia, neither of us had expertise there. From Native American mythology, neither of us had expertise there. So were we really qualified to be able to teach this even at an introductory level? It was a lot of feedback, but none of them really were sort of at the outcomes and assessment level. It was much more about sort of individual expertise, and if this was if it met the standards of the department. Um, Obviously, we did not win our appeal on that, and so the course never took off. And it was still, a good exercise, one that was very frustrating because a lot of time and effort went into it, and we had some pretty good projections about what the enrollment would be, and it would have been a strong course from a student interest days. But that's the way shared governance goes, is you don't always get the things that you want. So. Other times I've been on the curriculum committee, and it has been very much about, like, I don't think that the assessments actually test the outcomes. These aren't connected in a rigorous way. Or, probably the most standard feedback is, you said this was a 100 level class, but given the rigor and the assignments, we would slot it at a 300 level, sort of a junior level, because that's the expertise that would need to be able to do the course successful, or you need these prerequisites really to be able to meet those learning outcomes. So the feedback can be all over the place. I would say probably about 75% of courses that are proposed wind up being successful through the revise and resubmit process. 25% of them, though, just sort of never, it's a failure to launch situation.
Could I give an example? This is Melody.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Melody Buckner. I'm the Associate Vice Provost for Digital Learning, and I work closely with all of these folks. And I want to give you an example kind of along the vein that Caleb was talking about. Whereas I developed a program called Teaching Online by Design. It's both undergraduate and graduate. And I am the owner of the program. So all of the courses are mine. However, I am only one person. So I am mentoring people to teach those courses. So the faculty, when I went through this process, had enough confidence in me that I would be able to take graduate students, because sometimes we have graduate students that would be in my graduate program that could actually reach back and teach a 200 level class. And so, again, I become a faculty mentor in helping people, guide people through the experience. I'm actually doing that with a course that I'm teaching about online student engagement. And I have a faculty who's really has the PhD, has the background in teaching methodology, but is really interested in this content. So he and I are collaboratively teaching this class in the spring, and I am going to be mentoring him so that he can now take, and start teaching this class. Even though it's kind of my class, I like to share. And I also I think teaching is a part of the learning process. So I'm really excited to even get graduate students to teach maybe a 200 level course that I've created for this program. And again, I would be the faculty mentor. So that's another thing that kind of comes into play at the University of Arizona, because we do have graduate students that teach some of our courses. So I just wanted to interject that as an example.
Thanks for making me look like I don't like to share.
Well, and I was going to say, from both of your examples, I think they're two really great examples of opportunities for us to look at exploring at UAGC, right? They're very different approaches to how we currently do, course facilitation, as well as how we make decisions about courses that are or ideas, right, that are eventually going to be turned into courses. We do have a governance process, but it is, I would say, maybe not quite as intense, Caleb, as what you've shared, where the courses do go through department level approval and college level approval, but in different ways than committees that are coming together, like you're talking about, to kind of be like, well, let's compare this course to this other course, or is there overlap here? Those conversations absolutely are occurring and happening within the program level, program chairs and assistant deans and the full-time faculty within those programs. But I think it's something that maybe we, as we look together towards the future, think about what does our governance process currently look like as compared to yours, and where are there opportunities, as we've talked about so much, to grow and use ideas from each other, or to say, oh, well, that's a great approach, do we want to modify something that we're doing? We do, I think, when it comes to teaching, Melody, I think one of our greatest strengths is that our full-time faculty have courses that they oversee and build amazing partnerships with the associate or adjunct faculty that we have here, and really take time building those partnerships and getting to know them, and talking about courses and seeking feedback from them to use that information to help inform decisions. But it's a little different in that everyone's teaching the same course, right? And that's our model, as opposed to, here's the course that I created, and now I'm being like, okay, I'm gonna, I think you are ready to teach my course that I've created. But that mentorship is there in a different way. But I think that's, again, because of the difference in that, grounds up versus centralized approach.
I think another interesting thing, based on Charles's comment in the chat, has to do with some of the overall programmatic differences. So one thing that's very common in University of Arizona and Arizona online courses or programs is that the requirements are laid out, but they're often in buckets. So it's like, to get this degree, it's not these are your course pathway, but it's these are your buckets of courses. So you have to take so many of this list of courses, so many from this list of courses. So there's a variety in there, which is why, each faculty member has their own courses that they offer within this mix of within the degree requirements. So I think there's a slightly different approach, but I do agree with Charles' statement that there needs to be a data-driven approach to really thinking about what students' needs, and then the thing that gets into our proliferation of courses, it's not just student needs, but student wants, because there is a different sort of marketplace here. So if I can introduce a course that's in that bucket that is somehow finding that student want, the desire to be in that subject matter, I can drive a greater amount of revenue into my program by offering that. So it is, some internal competition that arises. And so considering what students need to be able to fulfill the degree requirements and be successful, but then also there's that budgetary consideration that unfortunately at the U of A rests on every individual faculty member's back in a unique way that you really need to be able to prove your worth within the larger program.
Caleb, what is it? How much can you change? Like once something has been approved, I forget, you can make changes to it. And what is it, 10%, 20? I can't remember.
25%.
25%. And this is where I really like to bring in like my colleagues, like this colleague that is coming in. He has a very different approach, and we were talking about how we could make some changes, not so much to the outcomes, but into the methodology of how we're doing things. And I just cherish that, being able to share and having a new perspective about a course that I've created. And I have this, okay, this is my one way of doing it. And now I'm bringing in a colleague with a different perspective. And he is helping me look at that in a different way. And I don't know, once you guys get your course like set, do you have a process for if things need to change and evolve? And what is the timeline for that?
Yeah, we have a couple. So when a course is not on in an actual revision, we have a process that's called curriculum revision addition form, or our short term for it is CRAF. And that is where we can make what we call non-emergency adjustments, right? So not something that's in the moment preventing students from being able to complete something in the course or be successful, but man, like we're hearing the same thing from the faculty teaching the course, that students are struggling with this. Like we need to make some adjustments to this particular assignment or feedback in that manner. So those can be submitted at any time. Those do have to be submitted by full-time faculty, as opposed to like if there's something that we find that's like a broken link or an emergency, anybody can submit those. But those adjustments to request content changes in a course do have to come from the full-time faculty. That way we know that, from some of the conversation here, that the right people are vetting those changes from a curriculum and a content perspective to make sure that if we make that adjustment, that the course is still fitting within the scope of what it's working to meet for that program as a whole. But yeah, we do have a process that we definitely don't want to wait, and don't wait. If there's something that we need to address, then we'll work to figure out how to tackle that. And in terms of how often that happens, those in between, that's really driven by the faculty, if they hear a need, or we have an amazing assessment team who monitors data. If they see something, they'll reach out to the faculty and say, hey, FYI, like, have you noticed this, and do we need to go in and make any adjustments? Or we'll monitor feedback that we get too, on the curriculum side. And sometimes if we see something, we'll reach out and say, well, hey, we've seen a lot of, questions about this. Maybe this is something that you want to look at too.
I was just typing in the chat. I think I want to implement something similar, a similar process. I'll call it the course revision application process for courses that need some help.
I'll put it in the chat for you, Caleb.
Curriculum development isn't worth it if it's not fun. Well, thank you both for sharing your perspectives in this presentation and for this discussion. Melody, thank you for your contributions as well. This was a really enlightening presentation for me, and I hope for all attendees. And I really encourage everyone to join us again tomorrow for the final session in how an idea becomes a class. I keep wanting to say how a bill becomes a law. How an idea becomes a class, which is going to focus on bringing curriculum development to fruition through a couple of different instructional support and development processes. And we will be joined by Kate Johnson, who's the Associate Director for Faculty Development in the Faculty Affairs Department at UAGC, and Matt Romanowski, who is the Director for Instructional Design in UCAT, which Melody and Lisa are responsible for. Tomorrow's session is going to be a little bit longer, actually, because after Kate and Matt's presentation, all of the presenters from all sessions will be joining us together with Melody and Lisa to have a panel discussion so that we can bring everything together and figure out what our main takeaways are. So I hope to see everyone there. But for now, I invite everybody to complete this TLC session feedback form. This is a great opportunity for us to learn more about your experience so that we can improve in the future. And I invite you to join us again at 2 p.m. Pacific today to hear from Dr. Lauren Scharf, who's the director of the Center for the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning at the U.S. Air Force Academy. This is a really timely presentation in the context of this series, because the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning is how we can do some research and get some evidence about our practices and their effectiveness and create knowledge from our curriculum development. So we'll be excited to see you there. Thanks again, and I'll see you later today and tomorrow. Bye.